So I have here the basic nodule of flint, and I thought we'd talk a little bit about the edge angles and how flint works when you strike it. Because that's really the core of flint knapping, is understanding the material properties of flint and what makes it so different to everything else. So a piece of flint like this, you have this chalky cortex and you have this grey central piece, which is where the centre of the flint material is. And when you're looking to strike a piece of flint, what we're looking at is the angle of where the stone is going to come down on and the remainder of the piece of flint. So if you picture what I've got here, if this is what we call the platform, which is the striking edge, then the remainder that's underneath it here is less than 90 degrees. And that is one of the crucial points of flint knapping, is if this was wider than that, or over 90 degrees, then I wouldn't be able to use it. But because it's less than 90 degrees, this means that when I strike with a piece of stone onto here, this piece here should come away. So there, you can see, if I reconstruct it, there's the point of impact. It's quite a large heavy stone, and so it's removed quite a large piece of flint, but it's gone down exactly where I wanted it to go. And that, in essence, is the principle of flint knapping, is this predictable quality of flint, which means that when you strike it at certain angles with certain force, you can predict what's going to happen afterwards. And it's only by doing that that you can start to develop the tools into more sophisticated and smaller objects. So making things like arrowheads and spearheads, or even smaller little blades. It's only by using the predictable nature of flint that you can achieve that. So now we've set up a new platform here from what was struck off. So this lip here, so if this is my platform here, this remainder here is less than 90 degrees. It will probably need a bit more force than the previous one, but we'll see what happens. So there we have some of the smaller pieces that have come away. So in flint knapping terms, this is called the core, and anything that comes off is a flake, and they're both useful. So the core is the piece that I'm working on, and then a flake I can pick up and modify and use as a flake tool. So now we can use this platform here to start going around and remove some of these smaller sections, and those which will come off something like this. These are useful in their own right as little knives, little blades. You could set them in a haft to use as a knife, or potentially as something like a harpoon edge. So different size stones will produce different results. So if I start to use a slightly smaller stone, it will produce less power, but I'll have more control over how I strike it, and hopefully I will have more control over the amount of flint that I remove as well. So what I'm doing now is just grinding the edge, and grinding the edge is what we call edge preparation. So when you strike the flint, you're sending a shock wave, which actually comes out as a little ripple, exactly the same as if you dropped a stone in a pond. And you're sending that shock wave through the material until it detaches at the other side, or wherever it stops. If the edge isn't strong enough to take that shock wave, it will just crumble. So one of the elements of flint knapping is to prepare the edge properly, or prepare the platform properly, so that the shock wave, instead of dissipating, actually gets sent where you want it to go. So these diagnostic scars down here, this is what, if you were analysing a piece of flint, you would be able to use to work backwards to understand what's happened. So the lines here indicate a previous piece of flint that's been removed, and these are what we call step fractures, and this is where the flint has been struck here, and instead of the shockwave moving all the way down the face, it's just terminated here and left us with this little, it looks like a step. And these can keep going backwards, as you can see here, they just disappear all the way backwards. And so when we find flint tools, and you can see these markers here, this tells you something about how it was made. So that's quite a nice little backed blade. So you've got the bit of cortex there that you could hold on to, and then this would be quite useful for cutting, maybe doing some plant work or cutting some meat. Yeah, I think that'll probably do.